Hi. My name is Rick Lowe. I'm an artist from Houston, Texas, and I'm going to share a project there that I've worked on for the past 20 years. I was introduced to the idea of social sculpture, a concept by a German artist by the name of Joseph Beuys. He defines social sculpture as the way in which we shape and mold the world around us. One day I was on a tour with a group of activists, and they were going through the neighborhood looking at houses like these that they wanted to try to figure out what to do with, and they wanted to tear them down. And there are lots of these kind of houses in this neighborhood. But as I agreed with them that they should be torn down, I started to see houses that wasn't so bad and had an interesting character about them. So I wanted to investigate and explore what possibly, value could these houses have at a different time. And I saw this artist's work named John Biggers, who did a lot of paintings about shotgun houses, these little old Southern-style houses. And I thought, maybe this is an opportunity to create social sculpture, to try to figure out how to turn these houses that had no value into the neighborhood as something that was symbolic of neighborhood growth and development. And so I went through a process of organizing artists, community residents, and so on and so forth to reclaim these houses and try to repurpose them and see if we could give them a different value. So once we cleaned the houses up, we decided to build a community there. And the elements that we wanted to have in the community were artists, art and creativity as a big part of it. We knew that education played a big role in communities, so we wanted to have that there. But we also wanted to have some kind of social safety net as a part of this project. So we started out. We cleaned the houses up, and we started programming them with art projects and having public events. So all of a sudden, these houses that were considered the worst houses in the neighborhood became a beacon of hope and an opportunity for people to come and experience the neighborhood and share in the history. And so from the front area to the back courtyard area, it's always opportunities for vibrant activity to happen there. And the core of it, though, was having artists at the center. How do we have artists that come within a neighborhood where usually there's not very much art around, and to explore things and challenge people and encourage people to engage and bring their own creativity into the process. And I'm going to show you just a few of those. And the way that artists work, that I work with on this project, is through engaging people in creative ways. So sometimes it's just asking people to prepare dinners and eat together, people from outside of the neighborhood, people from inside of the neighborhood, or doing traditional rituals within the houses, or even sometimes just kind of utilizing the houses to think about some of the tragedy things that are happening. This is a project that happened after a hurricane happened, and there was so much devastation that an artist took one of the poles and just rammed it through the house. Also, in ways of helping people to think about, how do we green our community? And so these artists would grow things within the house using grow lamps, but then place them on the outside of the house so that people could take them and move them around in the neighborhood. And also, the houses become a place that is a platform for speech. The one on your lower right-hand side is a quote from Obama when he was running for president. And so speaking his language here on these little houses. And the other one is a replica of the border wall between America and Mexico. So that's kind of the art and creative side, having artists involved in an ongoing way. But we also wanted to have youth involved in this process. So we set up an after-school and summer youth education program where we worked with students in the community and helping them figure out how to redesign and rebuild places that they wanted to see done. So they're mentored with different artists, and they actually get to do the work themselves and see a role that they can play in the rebuilding of the community in the way that they want it to happen. The social safety net part, we had these little houses that people said had no value and that we should tear them down, but we wanted to show symbolically the value of these houses and what possibilities there could be, the dreams that people historically had in these houses of becoming better and living a great life. We wanted to show that and challenge people in a modern day situation. So we we work with designers to redo the interior of these houses to host, well, to do it as a transitional housing program for single mothers. So every 2 years, there's a different group of mothers that get to come in and share in this new home. And the point is to really get them to think about their lives as art. Think about how do they live their life in an artful way, a creative way, to overcome the challenges that they are constantly facing. Now, one of the challenges, though, with doing this kind of project and generating a lot of support around it was that then all of a sudden people are interested in the neighborhood. And I think most of you are familiar with the term gentrification. People want to come and occupy the space. And one of the challenges of this for us was that the Project Row Houses is in the little orange part. And downtown, you can see the sign that says downtown. And then there's the medical center on the lower side. And then the University of Houston on the right-hand side. So our project is in the center of this dynamic place, and forces are kind of pushing in from every direction. So there's a lot of this kind of stuff that's happening where the little small houses are being taken out and larger houses are coming in. So instead of us complaining about it, we decided to start buying land and figuring out how to design houses that would fit within the neighborhood, that would speak to the history, and also try to inform new developers of different ways that they could develop in the neighborhood that fit the context. And so these are some of the products of those investigations. A lot of small houses, small house structures that we play around with to just kind of see if we can show people different ways of doing them. Even some are very modern. And then we bought a lot of land that we had as like open space that we could build upon in the future, because we have a strong private sector movement and real estate development movement in Houston. And the only way you can control what happens in a neighborhood is to own land. And so we managed to put together a resource to buy land. And in the process of holding this land, we use it as sculpture gardens, informal park spaces where people in the community come together and have space for different purposes. And then we started to take these small buildings as well. After we renovated the original houses and built some additional new houses, we also started to take some of these small buildings and repurpose them and figure out how to use them for different things that are happening in the community. And so this is one of the great examples of the old ballrooms that happen in traditional black neighborhoods in the South. And it was a ballroom that one day was one of the glorious places to be. And we've tried to bring it back as a place that we could hold banquets, but also presentations, musical events, and so on and so forth. Now, so what we found ourselves doing was really kind of merging this old with new and trying to rebuild a community that both looked to the future, but also didn't turn its back on its past. And that's been a journey for us in this process of trying to keep a balance there. But while the community scale is that's a larger perspective to look at it, but it's all rooted in the individuals. I mean, every community is only as good as the individuals that are part of it. And so what I started to do was encourage other artists to look at people in our community and see if we could kind of find the value in them, because we want everybody in our community to be contributors. When Joseph Beuys coined the term social sculpture, he basically said that if we were going to shape and mold the world as a work of art, everybody had to contribute as an artist. And so I went through this process of trying to figure out the artistry in everybody in our community. And so I'll show you 3 examples of people. This is a person who was a kind of an oddity. He would play his music throughout the neighborhood, and people thought he was a little crazy for doing it. But I wanted to show that there was a value to what he was doing and spread that to the community. So I made these little posters of him, because he was playing at the locations where houses were constantly burning, and it was almost like he was playing the death song of these houses. And it was an opportunity to represent him to the public in a way of showing some value to him. Then there was another project, another person this person had been written off by our community because he had gone away and been in prison for about 20 or 25 years. When he came out, he didn't really have very much to offer, he didn't think. But I saw this guy, and I loved his smile, and he was always cooking, and I thought, you know, somebody should ask him about his dreams and figure out if there's a way that we can help him realize his own dreams within the context of the neighborhood that we were building. And so I asked him what was his dream life, and he said he liked to cook. So maybe, you know, his dream life, he would have had a cafe. And so I just started simply with making a poster of him in his dream life, right? So making a poster of someone, just a gesture to say, this is how you see yourself. You should believe in yourself in that way. And so we took this from this point to actually even implement him, to give him that kind of value within our community where he died about 2 years ago, but at least 6 years of his life, the last 6 years of his life, was a life filled with his dream of cooking and feeding people, and it caught on, and he started selling T-shirts and mugs and aprons and all those kinds of things. So he became a real figure within our neighborhood. Another example is this woman who was just a simple woman that would push a grocery cart down the street. She would pick up people's laundry and put it in black bags, wash it, and take it back. Well, during our project, when we were building new houses, we also needed a laundry facility. And so we wanted to I figured we should honor her since that was something that she did on her own initiative, and most people didn't see it as anything special, but it was really a wonderful thing because there was nobody else in the neighborhood thinking about this as a business opportunity. So we reframed our laundromat around her, and she became the symbol of that and has carried that forward in her life as a community participant. So now I kind of rushed through this really quickly because I wanted to show you also quickly another project that's in Dallas that I've been working on recently, and I'm very, very excited about this project because it's a different context for me, and it's about pulling a group of people together from many, many different cultures in a neighborhood that was not designed for public action and activity. And there was a lot of crime there. So, oh wait, this is another image of Cookie Love being a little bit of a celebrity within the neighborhood. Okay, so this project in Dallas is called Vickery Meadow, and it's a neighborhood that was designed in the 1970s as a traditional garden apartment style neighborhood, where it's just these little apartments like the ones on the right-hand side all over. They were designed for people to drive their car into the parking garage, and whenever they needed something, they'd get in their car and they'd drive out around the city to deal with those things. And but at some point, the neighborhood changed. It was no longer the nice neighborhood to go to. It became a neighborhood that was full of immigrants and refugees and low-income blacks and whites and Latinos. And it quickly became known as a neighborhood of violence. And so my challenge was to figure out how to reposition this neighborhood. I mean, what are the elements that make a neighborhood violent? Is it because people are inherently bad, or sometimes it's because there's no opportunities for people to come together and to kind of work out their differences or different issues? And so I started to look at the diversity of this community and to realize that there was a real problem because a lot of the refugees and immigrants that came to the city, they stuck in their own groups because they didn't know other people in other groups. And so I tried to figure out, how do you do that? What can we do to actually connect them to each other? And so we came up with this idea of doing markets and training people how to produce things for a market. So, and I came up with the idea because I would see people walking down the street trying to have a market atmosphere on their own. And I thought maybe we could help, move that along and see if we could prove the city wrong, because the city kept saying that people won't come together in that neighborhood. They don't like each other. People from outside of the neighborhood won't come in. So we went through and we did a lot of research and talked to people about the possibilities of coming together. And so we started out doing workshops in some of the apartments, teaching people how to make things that we were hoping that they would bring to a market. And then we had the first market, and it was pretty amazing. We had people from, a lot of the refugees that are there are from all over the world, west, north, east, Africa, throughout the Middle East, and South Asia, and so on and so forth. And so hosting these people with talent shows and those kinds of things, giving them the opportunity to come together and share with each other who they are, their cultures, and so on and so forth. And we actually ended up, we ended up doing some other things to even embellish the whole notion of what the neighborhood was all about. This is an image from a gallery in London that's called White Cube. And White Cube is really known as a commercial gallery space that really enhanced the value of artists' work. And so I wanted to take this concept of White Cube and see if you can use White Cube to elevate the value of the work that people were producing in the Vickery Meadow neighborhood. So I went back, because also we were hosting these markets along the streets, and artisans were putting their things on tables to sell, but some of them were doing really wonderful work that needed a better space. So I went back and I challenged a group of architects. I said, you know, we need a White Cube in this neighborhood. You know, I mean, I know this is not London, you know, but we should figure out a way to do this. And so I challenged them, and they came back with these designs of little cubes that we could place along the perimeters of the street and actually make them kind of social spaces and public amenities, because, as I said, the neighborhood was basically designed where no one walked the streets. And we felt like the streets was a great place to get people to start connecting and interacting. So once we got these White Cubes there, we started to host exhibitions. So that's the one on the left-hand side is the White Cube in London, and the one on the right-hand side is our little White Cube in Vickery Meadow. But it became a symbolic space of value for the neighborhood and for people to actually be able to see work within their neighborhood in a dignified way, and to be able to have these places as public space through which they could kind of move through and celebrate with each other. So throughout the times of the markets, there was exhibitions, a wide range of exhibitions, from very experimental works to the more traditional kinds of projects. And one of the interesting things about it is that they're open all day long with no one around, and people have to exercise their own judgment and their own responsibility in terms of respecting the space. And so we were able actually to prove the city wrong, that people within the neighborhood from different cultures would come together, and when they came together, they produced things together. I mean, they would work together in ways that no one really thought was possible. And also people from outside of the neighborhood would come into the neighborhood to support them, to buy their works. And ultimately, you know, we were really, really excited to be able to see that through this project, we were actually able to create a public space within a neighborhood that there was no public space before. Thank you.